productivity will be super low. I will say this kind of government is very effective if you're a politician. You can make millions while the rest of your nation is in poverty. This guy named Edmund Burke, he was an Irish politician in the UK. He's probably famous for this quote, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." He says, "It's not the government's job to provide for the people. In fact, the people provide for the government. The government's not supposed to pay your rent. You pay their salaries. It is impossible for the government to provide for you because they can only provide for you with your own money. Whenever the government gives you anything, they took it from you and your neighbors in the first place." The government's job is to prevent evil, but it is very, very difficult for the government to do something good by itself. It can only do good with your money. It can't increase the money in the economy. It can't increase productivity. It can only spend your money wisely or foolishly. The government, therefore, should be concerned with only public matters like peace and safety. They should be trying to prevent war or defend you from foreigners. They should, be involved in domestic safety, protecting you from thieves, keep public order, and do things like that to help the country, not be concerned with individual prosperity, but the nation's prosperity. In the 1930s, America went through a progressive phase that had the attitude that it's the government's job to fix the problems of society. And they pointed out several big problems in society. The prisons were terrible. They were basically just rooms, no bathrooms, bad food, bad water. The people were not being taken care of. They're just being thrown in a dark room and, throw away the key. A lot of mentally ill people were just thrown in jail because there were no mental asylums. There was tons of drunkenness. There was anti-feminism. There's all sorts of problems, and it's the government's job to fix all those problems, right? And then the Great Depression hit, and all of a sudden, there's way more problems than before. There is a crisis. The world is in a terrible depression, and how are we going to deal with this crisis? Well, FDR says, if you elect me for president, I will, and the government will fix this. So here's Uncle Sam is sick, and there's Uncle Sam's wife, Mrs. Congress. And here comes Dr. FDR saying, here is a bag full of different medicines. These different medicines, CWA, CCC, AAA, these are all government programs to spend a bunch of money to try to help the economy. And FDR's attitude was exactly what it says here. Well, I don't know which of these programs will work or not, so let's just spend a bunch of money, see which ones work and which ones don't work. And if one isn't working very well, then we'll stop that and spend all that money somewhere else. His attitude is, let's spend a ton of money to spend away the Great Depression. This is called his New Deal, and government grew by leaps and bounds. The big government will rescue America. We had just gotten off the gold standard, so your dollars do not equal gold in the bank, which means it's much easier for the government to print as much money as it wants and spend as much money as it wants. And FDR is the first of these huge, massive, big spenders who just throw cash, give it out like it's candy. And he spent a lot of that money on public works, building things like dams and roads and bridges, electrical power plants. And another benefit of that is there's so much unemployed people around. Let's hire them to do not terribly skilled jobs, like move around these wheelbarrows full of dirt to build a better road. Okay, doesn't take a whole lot of training to do that. So you have the double benefit of reducing unemployment, getting people jobs, and spending money that will go directly into the economy. This did work somewhat. And every time the government spends a lot of money and it works somewhat, Democrats are like, oh, well, if a lot of money helps a little bit, what if twice as much money was spent? Would that help even more? And Republicans look at that and say, we spent how much money and it only helped a little bit? We got to stop throwing good money after bad. By the way, our infrastructure today has a D+ rating. Our bridges are falling down, our roads are crumbling, America's infrastructure stinks, and a lot of people are saying right now is the best time to have this massive rebuilding program, just like in the Great Depression. Maynard Keynes says the economy ought to be run by experts, not by everybody's individual choices. He is kind of anti-freedom in this area where he is much more, the government should hire economic experts to tell people what to do. He says demand creates its own supply. During a recession, people are buying less, so give them a ton of cash. And then they will demand more, they'll buy more, and then people will produce more, and all of a sudden the recession is gone. The problem is, where are you getting that cash to give to the people? You are taking it from the people. So you're not actually providing more cash, you are just rearranging it. He's very much on board with, FDR's spend, spend, spend. Spend your way out of the Depression. During the 2008 recession, President Obama and the Democrats spent $800 billion on the automotive industry trying to help these car manufacturers out. And I like this picture. President Obama is saying, well, if $800 billion for the cars helped, let's spend $800 billion on every other industry as well. Spend, 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 spend. I don't know what this CBA guy is, but some kind of bean counter is going, it's a lot of money. We can't spend that much. That's way too much. Well, recently, during the 2019 and 20 pandemic, President Trump and the Republicans did the exact same thing, only more than twice as much money, giving over $2 trillion to help the economy. Here's the Cubans saying America will soon be getting coronavirus bailout checks from the government. But they like socialism now. Yeah, Republicans hate socialism until the coronavirus happens, and they're like, yeah, give everyone $1,200. I can't think of a more socialist thing than just getting a check in the mail from your government for absolutely no reason. That's socialist. The House just passed a bill spending $3 trillion more dollars, and again, Trump said that he would veto that, but we'll see. If you have researched these two bills, I would like you to point out to me what the difference is between $800 billion here and $2 trillion there. I know they're not spent on the exact same thing, but I think what they're spent on is secondary to the fact that the government is just spending all this money to help the recession. And in that area, they are exactly the same. There's a problem, so the government just gives tons and tons of cash to help out. Free money. Very socialist idea. I think it's kind of sad that Republicans are turning so socialist. If the Democrats are super socialist and the Republicans are leaning socialist now, well, who do you vote for if you don't like socialism? Not a lot of options left. Alexis de Tocqueville, in our pre-revolution days, said, the American Republic will endure until the day Congress discovers that it could bribe the public with the public's money. That's exactly what it is. When they say free money, they're really saying, hey, can I have some money? Okay. Hey, here's some money. Oh, thanks so much. You should not be pleased when the government gives you your money. Just cut the government out of it and keep your money for yourself. Here's a really cool graphic of how much $1 trillion is. There's 100. 10,000. $1 million. Easily fit that in a backpack. $100 million. I want to make a cash out of it. $2 billion would fit in the truck. $1 trillion. This keeps on going. And going. That's a lot of money. Are we done yet? Here we go. Nope, still going. That's $1 trillion. 3 football fields. And the government just spent 2 of those. $20 trillion compared to the Statue of Liberty. You made her sad. I think that's closer to like $25 trillion today. That is so much cash for Statue of Liberty. In 1930, the state and federal governments employed about 2.5% of the American population. That's still a pretty sizable percentage of the population. In 70 years, by 2000, that number was 7% of the American people work for the government. That is 7% of the salaries in America are paid for by the taxpayers. 12% of Mainers work for the government, and that is both federal and state. 12%. More than 1 in 10 people are paid for by the government. Virginia has 20% of the people working for the government. In Alaska, 25%, 1 in 4 Alaskans work for the government. How can 3 out of 4 people pay that 4th person's salary? That's so much money. I know in Vermont, I don't know the exact percentage, but in Vermont, more people work for the government than any other business. Most of these new employees that have been added since the 1930s are necessary for these new social programs, like Social Security. So you say, I want to give all old people a check for being old to try to help them be old. Okay, well, who's going to print those checks? Who's going to deliver those checks? Who's going to figure out who all the old people are? Who's going to do the customer service for when there's an issue? Who's going to do the IT for all the computers for these guys? You know, deciding to spend money on Social Security is going to require you to hire thousands of people in order to do that. Public school, let's spend billions of dollars on public schools. Okay, well, now we're not only spending money on public schools, we also have to hire the teachers and the janitors and the construction workers and all that kind of thing. It takes a lot of money just to be able to spend the money on the thing that you voted for. People hate paying taxes. That's not new. But people love receiving benefits from the government. That's not new. So a surefire way to get voted in, to get elected, is to say, I will lower taxes and increase spending. That'll get you elected, but it's not going to help the economy. Conversely, if you're trying to help the economy saying, I'm sorry, we have to increase taxes to pay off all our debt, and I'm sorry, we have to cut benefits because we can't afford them, no way you're going to get elected. That is one of the drawbacks of democracy. So unfortunately, people don't always vote for the wisest candidate. They vote for the candidate that will make them the most money. Once you start a program, do you want to be the politician to end it? I don't think so. It is almost impossible to stop a program that helps people, because if you try, you're not going to get elected. You're going to get unelected. It's just incredibly unpopular. Lots of people want to reduce taxes by ending someone else's program. Young people say Social Security costs too much, let's end it. Old people say education help costs too much, let's end that. Everyone has programs that help them and want to cut someone else's programs. No one's willing to cut their own. Similarly, Congress often has like a 30% approval rating, but like 98% of congressmen get reelected. So everyone's saying, I hate Congress, but my congressman's pretty good. Well, it can't always be other people's congressmen that are doing bad. To get elected, politicians can't just have a very small base. Like, you can't just have young people voting for you, and then you can get rid of Social Security. You need young people and old people. You need men and women. You need minorities. You need the rich. You need the poor. You need lots of different groups of people voting for you to get a majority. Unfortunately, they all want different benefits. And so to get elected, you kind of have to give lots of money to lots of different groups of people. Good luck alienating even one of those groups. I did a lesson recently pointing out the problems with capitalism, but far and away, capitalism is a million times better than any other idea that's out there. Why is a free market better than socialism? Well, the best reason is it works, and we've seen it work for a long time. Capitalism works, and it works better than any other type of economy. It is by far the most effective means of production, and production equals wealth. The free market has made America the richest nation on earth, and it's not even close, it's by far. And other nations have copied America's free market, and the ones that have are also very wealthy. There are nations that have all the same resources that America has that are in poverty. What's the difference between them and us? Capitalism. China has about 2/3 of our economic input, even though they have 4 times as many people as we do. That is insane. That means that each person is only producing about 15% as each American is. Each person is only paid 15% as much as the average American is. Even with all their money. Do you know how much resources China has? You know how big it is? China is about the same size as mainland United States. And they have all the same resources America does. It has wonderful farmlands, it has hills and mountains that have great mining, they have lumber, they have ocean resources, fish, they have every type of natural resource you could possibly imagine. Why are they not, 4 times as rich as we are? Because they have 4 times as many people. There's really only one reason, and that is we have capitalism, they have communism. If they switched to capitalism today, they would be 4 times as rich as America is within a couple decades. It would be amazing, but I don't think that's going to happen. The free market is not perfect. No economic system is perfect. There are problems in every economic system. But just because it's not perfect doesn't mean that it's not good. It is far better than any other system. And when you point out one problem with capitalism, say, well, let's just go to communism. Well, communism has a lot more problems. Extreme socialism, on the other hand, has never once worked. Capitalism works everywhere it goes. Extreme socialism doesn't. I say extreme because you can have some socialism and still be pretty wealthy. Like Canada owns the gas station, but that's not extreme like Stalin or Lenin, okay? They aren't doing as well as they could, but they're doing okay. A lot of people who are pro-communist say, well, no one's done it right yet. Okay, so lots of people have tried. China, Russia, North Korea, Venezuela. Lots of people have tried. No one's been able to make it work. Well, lots of people have tried capitalism and it's worked every time. So there you go. For America, we love freedom. We love liberty. It is a huge priority for Americans. Actually, a lot more than other people. People in many other nations don't value freedom as much as we do. It's partially cultural. They've never had that experience. Partially, just the culture where I grew up having the government tell me what to do. So that's just the way things are. Capitalism is freedom because you're allowed to make your own choices with your money. Socialist nations aren't always awful like Stalin. They don't always shoot people. Even the nicer socialist nations like Norway or Canada, they still have the government telling you what to do a lot of the time. Even if the government has a pretty good plan, it doesn't leave any room for individualism. The government doesn't always know what's best for you. And even if their plan is good for 80% of the population, well, then there's 20% of the population that could have done something different. I am much more in favor for local government. With this COVID crisis, Wiscasset and New York City are in completely different worlds right now. New York City's had thousands of deaths. Wiscasset, in fact, Lincoln County hasn't had a single hospitalization yet at the time I'm recording that. So it doesn't make sense that New York City and Wiscasset or Lincoln County should have the same response to coronavirus. I don't think so. We have completely different problems. We need completely different solutions. And when the government sends out a guideline for what to do, well, we need different guidelines for the heavily affected cities than for the less affected countryside. We need more individualism. Much of your life is centered around money and stuff. You work, you go shopping, you consume things, you sell things. Freedom in the economic arena is affecting you constantly. There are many places, many parts of your life that only affect you a little bit. But with money, that's going to affect you all the time. So if you want freedom, you're going to need economic freedom. Controlling your money is a way to control your life. So Americans say, you know what? Even if the government does have some pretty good ideas, I would rather control my money than have the government tell me what to do.